All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into the world of Michael Saylor.
Yeah, I know a lot of people know him from all the Bitcoin stuff he's been talking about lately,
He's definitely been making headlines.
but we're going to try to go a little deeper than that today.
Exactly, like way beyond the crypto hype.
Right, because looking at his bio here, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot, right? It's like entrepreneur, inventor, author,
It
philanthropist.
goes on and
So
on.
ready to kind of unpack all that. What makes this guy tick?
Yeah, for sure.
Even his childhood is pretty interesting, right? Born into a military family, constantly moving between Air Force bases.
Definitely. That's got to shape you.
They eventually settled near Dayton, Ohio,
Wow.
which is interesting, right? Because that's the birthplace of aviation, though, Wright brothers and all that.
Oh, yeah, so it's like growing up in the shadow of these aviation pioneers
Yeah,
that might have instilled this drive in him to push boundaries.
you think?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of seems like a theme that runs through his whole career.
Absolutely. And then he goes to MIT, gets not one but 2 degrees.
Double major, like.
Aeronautics and astronautics and science, technology, and society.
So even back then, he was interested in how technology shapes the world.
Totally.
Like he was preparing to be that bridge between technology and society.
Oh, and get this. While he's at MIT, he's also in a rock band
No way.
and learning to fly gliders.
What?
Talk about a renaissance man.
It's like all these different things he was doing back then.
Right.
Maybe that's what gives him this unique perspective now.
Yeah, it's like all those different experiences, all those different passions
Right.
help him connect the dots in a way that most people just can't.
That's an interesting thought.
And then after MIT, he goes into consulting.
Okay.
He's building these complex computer simulations for companies like DuPont, Dow, Exxon,
Big companies.
huge players, right? So he's basically helping these giants
Yeah.
make sense of their data, see patterns.
Right. Help them make better decisions.
Yeah,
So this is where he really starts to hone his analytical skills.
and really understand how systems work
Exactly.
and how to use information for an advantage.
Yeah.
And that leads him to founding MicroStrategy in 1989.
Makes sense.
So for people who aren't familiar, can you give us a rundown of what they do?
So they specialize in enterprise analytics and mobility software.
Okay.
Basically, they provide businesses with the tools they need to take their data and turn it into actionable insights.
And they've been pretty successful, right?
Huge success, yeah. Went public in '98.
But the thing is, he's not just content with just running a company.
No, he's not.
This guy's got over 48 patents.
Really?
He's a prolific inventor,
Wow.
always pushing the boundaries.
It's impressive.
So he's made significant contributions to all these different fields: relational analytics, web and mobile analytics, distributed and cloud analytics, mobile identity, Internet of Things.
All over the place.
It goes on and on.
Like he can't stop.
Right. And then on top of that, he starts other companies.
Oh, yeah, what were those?
So he's got Alarm.com, which was a pioneer in home automation and securities.
I've heard of that.
And then there's Angel.com, an early player in cloud-based interactive voice response,
Okay.
which Lake got acquired for a good amount of money.
So he's got this knack for spotting trends and figuring out how to capitalize on them.
Totally. And it's not just about the technology.
Right.
It's about how it impacts people and society as a whole.
Yeah, you can see that in his book, The Mobile Wave.
Right. Came out in 2012, became a New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller.
Wow.
So what was he laying out in that book?
He was basically making predictions about how mobile, cloud, and social networks would change the world.
And
he was pretty spot on.
was he really?
Yeah, he foresaw the rise of companies like Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google.
That's crazy.
How they'd disrupt industries, politics, everything.
So he was basically predicting the future of tech.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
And he didn't just stop at predictions, he also talked about the implications of all this.
So like the pros and cons.
Yeah, how these technologies would empower people, democratize information.
But also create new challenges.
Exactly.
So it seems like his interests go beyond just making money.
Yeah, you can definitely tell.
He's thinking about the big picture.
For sure.
The impact technology has on, humanity.
Which leads us to his philanthropy and education work.
Right, through the Saylor Foundation.
They've been supporting all kinds of important causes.
Children's health, refugee relief, environmental conservation, even the arts.
Yeah, and then there's the Saylor Academy, which is really cool.
I've heard of that.
They offer free college-level courses and professional development programs, all online.
Wow.
It's available to anyone in the world.
Seriously.
Yeah, they've reached over 2 million students.
That's incredible.
It really shows his belief in the power of knowledge.
Right, like he's trying to democratize access to education,
Yeah, it totally aligns with his ideas about the impact of technology.
So it's like he's this blend of tech-savvy entrepreneurial drive and a real desire to make a difference.
That's a good way to put it.
It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, Michael Saylor's definitely a fascinating guy.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground with Saylor.
Yeah, from inventor to philanthropist.
He's done it all.
Seems like it.
But there's this one big thing we haven't really touched on yet.
The elephant in the room.
The thing that's really put him in the spotlight lately.
Bitcoin.
Exactly. And it's not just that he's, invested in it.
Right.
He's become like this outspoken advocate.
A Bitcoin evangelist almost.
Yeah, but it's interesting because he wasn't always like this, was he?
No, not at all. He was actually pretty skeptical at first.
So what changed? What made him go from skeptic to, well, Bitcoin bull?
Well, back in 2019, he really started digging deep, researching the technology, the beaconomics of it all. And I think what he saw wasn't just a good investment opportunity, but a real paradigm shift.
So what clicked for him?
It seems like a few things came together. Remember, he's got this background in analyzing complex systems.
Right.
He's been looking at global economic trends for decades.
Yeah, and he was seeing some red flags, right?
Exactly, particularly around inflation.
Especially after the 2008 financial crisis.
Yeah, there was all this talk about central banks printing money, the potential for runaway inflation.
And he saw Bitcoin as a hedge against that.
That's right. Its fixed supply, decentralized nature, it offered a way to preserve wealth in a system that he thought was becoming increasingly vulnerable.
Okay, so he sees the potential of Bitcoin as a store of value.
Right.
But it goes way beyond just, personal investment.
Oh, yeah, way beyond.
This is where MicroStrategy comes in, right?
Exactly. In August of 2020, they make this huge move. They buy $250 million worth of Bitcoin.
Wow.
Becoming one of the first publicly traded companies to use it as a treasury reserve asset.
It was a huge deal.
Yeah, made headlines everywhere.
It was like a signal to other companies.
Totally. Like, hey, this is something to take seriously.
And they didn't stop there, did they?
No, they kept buying even as the price fluctuated like crazy.
So he was putting his money where his mouth was.
Absolutely. Betting his company's future on Bitcoin.
That's a whole other level of commitment.
Definitely.
And it had a huge impact, right?
Yeah, it legitimized Bitcoin in a lot of ways.
Brought it into the mainstream.
Suddenly, institutional investors were paying attention.
So Saylor's not just a Bitcoin enthusiast.
Right.
He's a catalyst for its adoption.
Yeah, he's been using his platform to educate people, giving interviews, speaking at conferences. He even wrote a book about it.
It's kind of like what he did with the mobile wave.
You're right, taking something complex and making it accessible.
Breaking it down for the average person.
Exactly, and he's doing it at a time when the world is, facing all these economic and technological shifts.
And his message is resonating, right?
Yeah, with people who are looking for alternatives, who are questioning the traditional systems.
But of course, not everyone agrees with him.
Of course not. He's got his fair share of critics.
Some say he's putting MicroStrategy at too much risk.
Right, that he's become too focused on Bitcoin.
Like a Bitcoin maximalist.
Yeah, dismissing other cryptocurrencies or blockchain technologies.
He's definitely known for making bold statements.
To say the least.
So it's easy to get caught up in the hype.
Right.
But what's the real takeaway here? What's the substance?
I think it comes back to what we've seen throughout his career.
Yeah.
He's a deep thinker, he sees patterns, he analyzes trends, and he's willing to bet on what he believes is the future.
And he's not afraid to go against the grain.
Not enough.
Challenge the status quo.
Even if it ruffles some feathers.
Right. So whether you agree with him on Bitcoin or not,
Yeah.
you can't deny that he's a fascinating figure.
He makes you think.
He's having a real impact on the world.
He's asking us to think differently, to consider new possibilities.
And that's valuable in itself.
Absolutely.
It's really amazing when you think about it. His whole journey, Air Force bases to MIT, from simulations to starting companies,
Yeah.
writing bestsellers, and then becoming Mr. Bitcoin.
It is, and what I find really striking is that there's this consistent thread throughout his whole life.
Right.
It's like this insatiable curiosity,
Yeah.
this drive to push boundaries, this belief in technology and how it can shape the future.
It's like every experience he's had, all the moving around as a kid, the different degrees,
Yeah.
all the companies, it's all come together to give him this really unique perspective.
And it's that perspective that I think leads him to embrace Bitcoin so strongly.
Totally.
He sees it as more than just an investment. It's like a solution to some of the world's biggest problems, at least for him.
And it's not just about, riding the wave.
Right.
It's about understanding the currents underneath, the forces that are pushing us towards this new this new financial technological landscape.
And whether you agree with him or not,
Right.
it's definitely thought-provoking. It makes you question your own assumptions about money, about technology, about the future.
Yeah, he's basically saying, hey, the world's changing, and here's one way to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's not just talking about it, he's like putting his money where his mouth is, his resources, his reputation.
It's true. That's what makes him so compelling.
He's not just some theorist. He's a doer.
A man of action.
And that's inspiring, even if you don't agree with everything he does.
I agree.
It's a good reminder that we all have the power to shape the future,
Right.
to make a difference.
We may not all be Michael Saylor, but
Right, but we can all be curious. We can try to learn new things. We can challenge the status quo,
yeah,
and we can act on our beliefs.
well said.
So that was our deep dive into the world of Michael Saylor.
A fascinating guy.
Yeah, a real innovator, disruptor, and someone who's always looking for knowledge.
Definitely.
Whether you think he's a visionary or a maverick,
Yeah.
there's no denying he's a force to be reckoned with.
If you want to learn more, I definitely recommend checking out his work, his books, articles, interviews.
Yeah, they give you a real insight into how he thinks, his vision for the future.
And who knows?
Right.
Maybe his story will inspire you to take some risks, dive into those ideas that really fascinate you.
Yeah, and make your own mark on the world.
That's what it's all about.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, keep exploring.